We do have a lot of people in the mission field right now. Y'all be in prayer for people on mission trips to Myrtle Beach, Florida, the mountains. But this vacation time is starting, and I'm happy for my people. I had a pastor say, you get down when your people are going to go vacation? I said, no, because I know my people are going to come back rested and revived and ready to have some church in August. But, guys, enjoy your time. But there's a lot of people out. Pray for them that they'll have fun and that they'll stay away from jaws, right? How many's worried about sharks when you go to the beaches here? I'm a little bit worried. I worry anyway. But anyway, I diverse. What I want to do today is I want to pray for you right quick because I believe the greatest thing we can have is understanding. We've got to understand things before we can change them. I can't change what I do not understand. My car messes up. I cannot alter what's wrong with my car. Why? I do not understand my car. I have to get my car to someone who understands it to fix what is wrong with it. So if I'm going to fix things, I've got to come to a place of understanding. Now, we understand things, but we've got to understand how they work when they are healthy. Some of you understand how a marriage works when you're fussing. Some of you understand how to work with a budget that don't have a lot of money. But you got to change the way you think and begin to understand how to live a healthy life, how to live a healthy thing. So what I want to do right now is just bless you. Father God, today, get our understanding. Help what I say, God, to be spoken to them through you. Help us to learn something today. Lord, I speak a fire into this church. I speak a fire into the student ministry of this church. Lord, that you may be glorified and great things are coming. We love you. And everybody said, amen. Touch 3 people and say, enjoy this. Say, enjoy this. How many knows anything about me? I'm a sports nut. Love sports. I don't care what it is. They keep a score, I'm watching it. I went down the other night to the Little League field, and somebody said, you have a little boy playing? I said, nope. We just saw the lights on and came down here and started watching these boys play ball. And Dad was like, he won't sign me up. I said, hold on, we're holding out for a bigger contract. We're holding out right now. But I love sports, and I mainly love college sports. I love college football. I love college basketball, especially March Madness. What I love a lot about it, besides just the team, I love the pageantry and the excitement of it. How many's ever been to a football game? How many gets excited at a football game? How many's ever left a football game going, I'm tired, that was boring? I don't ever want to go back. Some of you are like, I don't like football very much. Well, Jesus needs to heal you. But if you've ever been to a sports game, that is basic. How many's ever been to a Clemson game? So you've experienced heaven this side of heaven. How many's been to a South Carolina game? How many's been to a Michigan game? How many's been to a Notre Dame? How many's been to a Carolina Panthers game? How many's been to a 49ers game? If you haven't, you didn't take me, you're in trouble. How many's been to a Ohio State game? How many's been to a sports venue? If you've been to a sports event, raise your hand. If it was just somebody hitting something and they kept scoring a chalkboard, you've been there. Well, if you've ever been to a college atmosphere, then you really get what the environment I'm trying to create at my church. I want an environment that rivals that of a college football game. I got an amen and a come on. Have you ever been to a college football game? How excited those people are about where they are and what they're doing? My God, I want that. I want when you walk on campus, people be like, welcome to the Purple Church. I want people tailgating. I love people to get here 2 hours early and start cooking wings. My God, I would be just trolling the parking lot. God's good all the time. But watch. But when I get to this and I get to the place where I want to get where they're crazy about the school colors, you know, they're crazy about wearing the logo. And the thing about a great thing is a fan not only supports the team when they're in the building, they support it 24/7 outside the building. I can walk up to a certain person here right now and say, Spurrier's a loser, and they'd be ready to fight me. I was messing with Andrew this morning. He's a diehard North Carolina fan. And he walked in, I said, Dean Smith wasn't a good coach. How are you going to preach after saying that? Why? I love the fact that they are not only supportive in the stadium, but they will defend her outside the stadium as well. I want a church like that. But when I start looking, go ahead. See, I want touchdown. He scores. That's chocolate. You know. But when you look at a college football game, I want you to play with me a little bit. When it comes to college football atmosphere, where does the support, and school spirit come from? Where does it start at? Student section. Who's the craziest people at the football game? Where's the one place you probably don't want to sit? I'd like to be the person in the church nobody lets to sit behind because you sweat and holler too much. If the wave gets started, where's the wave going to start? In the student section. Who are the loudest people? The student section. Who's the ones painted up? The student section. And the thing about the student section is they do not consider themselves to be part of the crowd. They consider themselves to be part of the team. And that's why they hold up signs like, we can't hear you. I'm going to preach real hard today. Are y'all ready for this? If you're ready, say, I'm ready. If you're not, say, I'll go anyway. Okay? So here's what I want to show you today, that it starts in the student section. When you're at those games, no matter what your team is, the loudest section is the student section. And I believe it's no different in the church. For far too long, the next generation has been sidelined and kept silent in churches all over the United States. Well, at Lifechangers Church, we don't just want to reach the students, we want to unleash the students. Hand clap. Applause. Hey, give me an applause button right here. That church is packed. And people are down with what he's preaching. But I don't just want to reach them. I don't want to I don't want to do clever things just to appease them. I want to unleash them. I want them to get in here, get it, and run with it. So I believe what I came to tell you today is if we're going to be great, if we're going to change the culture of this city, if we're going to change the culture of what's going on in America, it's going to start in the student section. It's going to start in the places where the people are the most excited is what I mean. If you've got an excitement for Christ, don't take it down because the people beside you don't have an excitement for Christ. Be loud. When you go to a football game and sit down, I know some of you are like, I cannot believe I'm sitting in the church and the pastor's telling me to act like I would at a college football game. Yes, you are. Nobody cares about who says what or does what. In church, you come in. Jesus. When I say Jesus, y'all are to act like somebody done broke something loose up in here. I'm going to put little shock things in the seats where I can just, over here I want a button for the shocks. I can do the clap, and I do that, and y'all going to jump up in the name of Jesus. In the name of Jesus. But I believe it's no different in the church, but you say they're too young, they don't have no responsibilities. I'm going to preach today a little bit, and I just want you to look on the screen with me. I got some different scriptures. We're just going to pull up the screen. And I want to start with the student section. Two things about the student section. Why do we need to get our young people involved? Why it is imperative that our church be able to identify, and I'm not just talking about high school kids, I'm talking about college kids. I'm talking about people who have yet to get married. I'm talking about this message could be for anybody who is having trouble identifying with a church. If you're wanting to find a church that you feel like you can fit in better, I believe this is the church for you. And we purposely try to offer it where you can fit in here. Now watch this. The reason I want to show you this, I'm going to take you to Matthew 17 because I want to show you something. When you ask me, why does it start in the student section, I'm going to start off with number one. We need to start in the student section because Jesus started in the student section. Tell somebody that. Jesus started in the student section. When Jesus started recruiting to build a team, he did not go to the synagogues and churches. He went to the fishing places. Some of y'all are like, yeah. That's probably where he would have found some of you, on the golf course, in the movies, right? He didn't go to the synagogues and seminary. He went to the fishing places. Watch this. But after this, Jesus and his disciples arrived back in Capernaum. The collectors of the 2 drachma temple tax came to Peter and asked him, does your teacher pay the temple tax? How many's ever paid taxes? Don't you love it? They go to him and say, doesn't your teacher pay temple tax? Yes, he does, replied. When Peter came into the house, Jesus was the first to speak. He said, what do you think, Simon? He asked, from what do the kings of the earth collect duty and taxes? From their own children or from others? From others, Peter answered. Then the children are exempt. Say that, the children are exempt. The children are exempt, said Jesus to him, but so that we may not cause offense, go to the lake and throw out your line. He loves to fish. Jesus loved to fish. Throw out your line, take the first fish you catch, open up his mouth, and you will find a 4 drachma coin. Take it and give it to them for my tax and for yours. Right? And you say, all right, why did you just use that scripture? What does that prove that God starts in the student section? Because it shows you the ages that Jesus was dealing with. Out of the 12 disciples, he takes one with him to get temple tax. Now, to understand the temple tax, you have to go back and pay attention to, let me make sure I give you the right scripture, Exodus 30, where it talks about the temple tax is due by all males over the age of 20 years old. If you're with me, say, I'm with you. All the males ages 20 years old. So anybody 20 years or older had to pay taxes, right? So when they come to Jesus and all his disciples and say, y'all don't pay taxes? Jesus says, yeah, we pay taxes. Well, why aren't you paying them? He says, go down and get a fish in the Lord, catch a largemouth, reach in there and pull out a $10 bill and go pay him. He pays for he and Peter. Why doesn't anybody else pay? Because they are under the age of 20. Jesus started in the student. Some of y'all are. No wonder this is so crazy. Some theologians even believe Thomas to be around the age of 14 or 15. Hence his doubt. He was so young he didn't understand. But what Jesus did, Jesus said, instead of taking a bunch of people that's already been to church and having to re-church them, I'm going to start out where nobody's ever heard the name Jesus, never heard what I'm doing, and take them along the way. That's what I'm wanting to do at Lifechangers Church. At Lifechangers Church, I told you a while ago, we want to unleash our students. We don't just want to reach our students. I got 2 of them in my house. The 2 most important people in my life are students. Are you being selfish? Yes, I'm being selfish, preacher, right now. I don't want my children to get messed up in what the devil's got going on. I want my children to love church. We got to work on it. We're like a Division 6 football team right now. Yeah, touchdown. But anyway, I got students in my home. I know I do not look like I would have them in my home, but I do. And I've got students in my home. Therefore, I want church to be relatable to them. I want them to get down with it. I want them to enjoy going to it. And for a lot of us, we don't just do ministry for students, but we want to do ministry with students because they can take the gospel of Jesus places we cannot. And watch this. And I want their generation to be on fire for the love and passion of Christ as much as my generation is on fire for the love and passion of Christ. I want you to know the importance of telling the generation behind you. I want Dalen and Drew, I want your children, and I want the singles in here. I want you to know the importance of telling people behind you the love of Jesus Christ. I want you to know, because they say every day that America becomes more Christian. Every day it becomes a less Christian nation. I didn't say a less church nation. Churches are going up and being built every day. But the greater the church does, the worse the world does. This past Easter Sunday, records were set for salvations and church attendance in recorded history of the church. But teenage pregnancies are at an all-time high. Suicide is at an all-time high. Racial tension is at the worst I've seen it since the 60s. Not that I've seen it or heard. Since the 60s. The church is going up, but the world is going down. That's not a coincidence. It's because we are passing down watered versions of the kingdom and not what the kingdom really is. If I'm preaching to you, say, I'm preaching. Now tell somebody, listen to this. I'm not going to name the school because y'all get mad at me. I go to a particular school and watch, every Friday night we go watch high school football, every Friday night. And we'll pick usually the game of the week, but we tend to go to this same school a lot because it's a cool place to go and there's mostly good games. But the thing about that place is their fans are terrible. Their fans are dead. The student section is crazy. We like to sit near the student section. Just don't get them near the band because it drives Daddy and Sammy crazy. Don't sit near the band. But we get near the student section because if you didn't sit near the student section, you would think the team on the field is not even playing. And we sit there, and I was sitting there thinking, man, I've been to schools that don't have half this, and they're so crazy and excited. These fans are dead. And their students would turn around and have signs that says, go back to the first, the hold-up sign says, we can't hear you. I think that's what's wrong with the church. I think that kids are wanting to stay home because they can't hear us. We're talking a gospel or we're talking a message that they don't understand. That's why today, how many saw the smoke coming out? Did you think something was on fire? Did you think Zach was smoking a cigarette while he was playing the drums? That smelled like Marlboro. That didn't smell like a smoke machine. Why all the silver and chrome? Why the trussing? Why the lights? Some of you felt like you was at a concert today instead of a church service. That was done on purpose. Why? It starts in the student section. You cannot reach a people that cannot identify with you. And if we're trying to reach people and they cannot identify, that's why culture is very important. It cannot be a culture that is preferenced and made to one particular group, because that's the only group we will reach. So we've got to expand and broaden our stuff. Do I like doing it? I could go without the smoke. I could. I could have went without it. I'm going to start going, I was like, and you can't smell it or taste it, but I swear I was choking on it. So it's not really what I want to do. It's what our youth team wants to do. It's what our teens like. It's what our students like. I mean, we're not competing with them going sitting in the library. We're competing with them going and sitting inside concert halls with laser lights and epic shows and all kinds of, but the church doesn't need to water down its message and reach the world. Yes, it does. It don't need to water down its message, but it does need to reach the world. And what we've done today didn't water down the message. I think Lifechangers is the message on steroids. Somebody tweet that. Put Lifechangers is church on steroids. Tweet it. And then hashtag, yes, we are. But Lifechangers, we can't have a good ministry. We've got to be a good ministry. Having something, we got to be it. Not just when we're here, but when we're everywhere. And now it leads me to the last part of this, and this is where I really want to get deep in you. If you got a student in your household or you are a student, listen to me really hard for the next few minutes. Not only does Jesus start in the student section, the enemy starts in the student section. The devil, you know what? Mom and dad won't admit it now, but do you know why mom and dad are in church crying, struggling? Mainly because of what they did at your age. I struggle with things, not like what I done while I was married, but the things I done before I was married. I don't struggle with things in my 30s. I still struggle with things I done in my pre-20s and teens. And mama's putting her fingers in the air. She don't want to hear this part of the sermon of how I've shot and done things. I'm just kidding. But here's what I'm going to do. Get to the next one, Isaiah 10. I want you to watch this. I've used this before in here. Isaiah 10, verses 27. It says, "It shall come to pass in that day that his burden will be taken away from your shoulder and his yoke." Somebody say yoke. How many knows what a yoke is? A yoke from your, not an egg yolk. A yoke from your neck, and the yoke will be destroyed because of the anointing oil. How many knows what a yoke is? Anybody ever used one? I haven't. A yoke is something they would take. You can see them in Wades. They have them like in, not Wades, a Cracker Barrel. They have them up above the fireplace and things. It's a big wooden, looks like big wooden handcuffs. And what they would do is they would take two oxen and they would yoke them together because ox was so big you couldn't control them. How many of you ever heard the saying, stout as an ox? Right? Because the ox is big and you can't control them. So what they would have to do, they would take an ox when it was very young and they would yoke it at a younger age so that it could be controlled by that yoke at an older age. They would yoke it at a younger age so that they could control it at an older age. What I'm saying is the ox became so accustomed to the yoke that even though he was older and stronger than it, he had become where he submitted himself to it, therefore could be controlled by it. What are you saying, Pastor? The enemy wants to do the same thing to our students, and he has done the same thing to us. He wants to put something on us now that we're young that we will struggle with when we're older. It's fun when we're young, but it's costing us stuff as we're older. It was fun the first time we went behind the high school and smoked that J and done that line. But 20 years later, when I can't hold down a job and I've lost 3 marriages over it, I ain't preaching to nobody right now. It's not fun no more. You know how sensitive I am? y'all know me. I'm transparent, and y'all won't judge me. I battled pornography so bad growing up. So bad growing up. And because what I watched as a child. And I am so sensitive to Dalen and Drew getting on the internet because of that. When Dalen's on the internet, he likes to get YouTube and watch it. And I asked, I said, Dalen, what you watching? He say, fails. I said, ain't no fails, nobody's clothes falling off, is it? I know y'all don't ask y'all's kids. Look, the kids in here like, shoot, I watched that. No. But I'm like, no, he's so I said, no. I'm like, don't you smile, brother. That's a yoke. I'm dead serious. And that yoke almost ruined my whole life. It almost ruined my ministry. It almost ruined my marriage. And what it is the enemy will put something on you as you are young so that when you're older, it's not fun anymore. It becomes a stronghold that you struggle with. And the devil is no different. And it's like I said a while ago, your mom and dad may not admit it, but a lot of their worship and a lot of their struggle comes from a place of what they did when they were your age. And we don't, how many says we don't want them to make the same mistakes we did? Well, don't make them act like you do in church. They ain't got to have the same type service you had when you was their age. They ain't driving the same car, and they ain't wearing the same clothes, so they should not have to have the same church. I thought I'd get a hand clap on that. How many remembers bell bottoms? This brother right here used to rock bell bottoms with a butterfly collar like nobody's business. Killing it, wasn't he, back in the day? And you may think that, you know, they're young and their decisions don't matter. The last thing I want students to know is that their decisions don't matter. Your decisions matter. Because you're in an age that you're involving yourself in something that you don't understand. Kids don't understand sex. They don't. Guys, if we don't talk about it, the world will. Okay? The reason the world's where it is because the church likes to say a few things, but they won't say everything. Kids don't understand sex. They just know it feels good. They don't understand the weight of it. They don't understand the unity of it. They don't understand the soul, spiritual realm of it. Kids don't understand what drug addiction is. All they see is a moment. Therefore, as parents, leaders of churches, and a Christian culture, we've got to teach them that they don't need to do certain things in their life. That's on us. That's not up to them. They will not do it if they are not taught. And the thing that worries me about it is the enemy, they think it's something fun that they're doing, but actually it's the enemy closing a noose on them, and they fail to realize things are happening. So you got Jesus and you got the devil. Both of them are recruiting from the student section. And the church is neglecting it. And we've sat down as a leadership at Lifechangers Church, and we've decided that we are not going to have a great student ministry. We're going to become a great student ministry. I went up to their building up here, their studio, which looks more like a dungeon. And I sat down with Pastor John and Pastor Joy and some of the team, and we talked about the vision of the studio, of the student ministry. And I'm a firm believer that the studio is there to reach multiple ages, not just those of high school. But I believe that the studio is there to equip people who just got out of high school to be equipped and taught and learn to serve those who are still in high school. I think somebody's entry level of ministry should be working with the studio. If God's called you to preach and you want to spread the word, go up there and help them spread it. If you can deal with teenagers, you can deal with anybody. Amen. But so we sat down, and what we're doing, we are transforming this campus into a student ministry campus because we're about to build a brand new adult campus somewhere. Oh. Y'all don't know about that yet. What? Yeah, that's coming later, though. Don't worry about it. It's going to be a little while. So what we're doing, we're constructing this. We are building it. I didn't look at it and say, what do we want as an adult? I sat with John and said, what do y'all want as a student ministry? What do you want this to look like? Now, sometimes he say some crazy stuff. He wanted a stripper pole over here. I said, we can't do that. He said, I'm messing with you. He wanted it over there. But I went on, what do you want it to look like? So what's happening this Wednesday, The dungeon is gone. Starting this Wednesday, this is going to be the studios building on Wednesday nights. You're going to ride by and you're going to think the Hulk exploded. There's green stuff everywhere here Wednesday night. But this is going to be the studio campus. We're going to make the studio, Lifechangers Church is going to have the biggest student ministry in the nation. In the state. It's going to be banging. But this won't happen without the parents' help. Listen, your kids don't want to go to church. I didn't wake up in the morning and go, oh, great night I rested. Well, hey, Mom and Dad, I think I'll go to church today. No, didn't work that way. Dalen and Drew don't go, God, I got to get in the bed and sleep. Church is tomorrow. Yeah. And if they do, something's up. Dalen done shot somebody or broke something. And Dalen comes out and says, oh, Dad, I just can't wait for church tomorrow to lift holy hands and magnify. I'm like, boy, what you done? And some of y'all married to somebody who plays sick when it's church time. Oh, I don't feel good. Parents, it starts with us. It starts in the student section, but they got to have something at home they can depend on too. Okay? And when I say students, I'm talking about across the board. I'm talking about children's ministry too. God's about to do something in the children's ministry that's amazing as well. I've just not announced that yet. We got to position these children to walk in the avenues of what their anointing is, the level of what they're being taught, so that they can eat from the places that they're being taught from. Children's church is created so that children can learn about Jesus in it. That's why we have children's church. It is not to babysit them. It is not to entertain them. It's that we can break the gospel of Jesus Christ down to a level where a child can understand it, grab a hold of it, and run with it. Are we there yet? No, but we're coming. Youth, teens, students, that's what it is. It's a culture. I told John, he said, how would you start off? I said, I do like karaoke and sing a few secular songs first. I sing Sweet Home Alabama or This Is How We Do It. I'll do Montel. This is how we do it. And that gets everybody in the groove and then pop on some other music. And if they stop, if you can move to the Montel, you can move to Jesus. Y'all think I done lost my mind up in here. And this is the perfect time to preach this because everybody's gone on vacation. They gonna come back and say, well, our pastor done lost his mind. He talking about stripper poles and singing Montel Jordan in church. Let me just say this. Again, when it comes to students and children and everything, I don't want to just do ministry for them. I want to do ministry with them. I believe that everybody in this building has access to every position in this building. I want my students involved in greeting. I want my students involved in staff. I want my students involved in decision making. I want my students involved in prayer meetings. I want my students involved in home groups. I want my students involved in using their resources to resource this house. And that goes across the board, that I think that what's wrong is that we've got to reach, teach, and unleash. We've got to reach, teach, and unleash. Write that down. Reach, teach, unleash. You're going to have a T-shirt that says that. Reach, teach, unleash. We've got to reach, teach. We don't want to reach and then unleash them because they don't know what they're doing, and they'll get burnt out. What's wrong with the church is we're not discipling people. And I done spoke this over David Carter right now. We're not discipling people. We're introducing them to Jesus, but we're not showing them any progression in the relationship. Therefore, they don't have much maturity, and they easily back up when circumstances come. So we've got to reach, teach, and then we've got to unleash. And we've got to let them hear us. When it's serious, when it's critical, them students will say, let me hear you, and everybody stands up. Right now, this nation needs to hear us. You hear me? This ain't the time for the church to be quiet. This is the time for the church to rise up. This is the time to tell people we love them. But it starts in the student section. It starts there. If you're a student in here, listen to me. Can I just preach? Come on, Adam. Where's Adam at? If you're in here and you're below the age of 30, I want to talk to you. If you're above the age of 30, you're not insignificant. You're just old. I'm just kidding. Hey, I'm 39, so if you're under the age of 30, I want to talk to you. I want to talk to you right quick. It says in, throw that up there, 1 Timothy. 1 Timothy. It says, don't let anyone look down on you because you're young. But set an example for the believers in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, and in purity. You're sitting in a church right now. You're sitting in an unbelievable environment right now that was literally birthed in the student section. Everything I am didn't start when I was 26. It started when I was 14 at a Bible Christian camp. I could care less about church. I could care less. I was more interested in picking up girls at the Bible camp than I was listening to the devotions. But that night when we walked in, God had something different for Travis Carter and the call that was on his life. I can remember sitting down and all the guys were talking about what we're going to do this and how we're going to have that, and we're going to go play foosball, and we're going to sneak off after lights out and smoke cigarettes, just act crazy and do it. And I was sitting there at the age of 14, and the guy walks out, and I remember how he got our attention. He walked out with a William Perry jersey on. How many remembers the fridge? And he had a basketball in his hind end and a basketball in his stomach. So it looked like he had a real big hiney and a big stomach. And that just caught my attention. I was like, look at this guy. And everybody's laughing. And he takes it out and he says, let me tell you something. There's just two choices on the shelf. Pleasing God or pleasing self. And it's like everybody in that room disappeared but me, him, and God. And he said, some of you in here right now, God's put a call on your life. 14 years old. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. 14 years old, I sit there. And he started building a fire. And he said, this is what God's doing in you right now. He's building a fire. He said he's got kindling and he's putting the materials there and he's building a fire in your life. And he says when the fire of God comes in your life, it consumes your old life and it burns up all your old sinful desires. And I remember that nobody was paying attention and I was locked in on him. And he said, if you're in here right now and you feel like God's got a great purpose on your life and you want to open up your life, you want to make yourself available to what God's doing, I want you to come down here, get a stick, and put it in the fire. He didn't have to ask me twice. I went down there and got the stick, and I can remember I put it in the fire. When I put it in the fire, he told me, God is going to consume you in your life. So I went back that night and read the entire New Testament. No. I went back that night, told dirty jokes like nothing had ever happened. But I had a seed in me. Students, look at me. There's a seed in you. We got to make sure that seed is taken care of. But what I decided at 14 was activated when I was 26. And I can remember when somebody says, how do you know you were called into the ministry? I say, you just know. And I knew then, and it began to speak to me, something that happened 12 years earlier was beginning to spring forth now. Why? Because it starts in the student section. And if you're in here right now, and you feel that way, I'm going to take the lights down a little bit. Everybody bow your heads and close your eyes. Everybody bow your heads. We're about to get out of here. If you're in here right now, and you feel like God's got a bigger purpose for you than what you're doing, I want you to raise your hand up. You can put your hand down. If you're in here right now and you say, Pastor Travis, what you spoke is true. I battle things in me now. It's because of what I did back then. Raise your hand. You can put your hand down. Here's what I'm saying. Basically, all of us are students. We all are going through, have been through, or about to go through something that's going to teach us things that will forever alter and change our lives. But will we learn from it? I was sitting there talking to a guy the other night, and we was talking about problems. And he said, why do you do this, and why do you have this? Why do you enjoy that? I said, because I had a nervous breakdown when I was 28 years old. But the thing is that we learn from it. And you're in here right now, and you're battling stuff. And you're dealing with stuff, and it's deep, dark stuff. I'm telling you, I cannot wait to preach this message, culture change. A culture shock. Paul says that I want to do what's right, but there's things inside of me that battle my desire to do what's right. And that's some of you. And you've allowed it to disqualify you so long. That was me. I would not do ministry because of the way I lived. I'm not going to get involved in church because of the way I live. God, I'm not going to be a hypocrite because of the way I live. I'm not going to go to church like I should because of what I got into last night. And that was the devil just stealing things from me and deceiving me and keeping me from understanding what church really was. But it was that moment that I realized God wasn't calling me while I was clean. God was calling me out while I was still dirty. Because God's not scared to get his hands dirty with what makes you filthy. And some of you in here right now, you're wanting to do something for God, but you feel like you're too dirty. If you feel like you're too dirty, raise your hand. I'm too dirty. This is an honest thing here. You got to be honest here. I'm too dirty. I am too. You can put your hands down. But I'm too dirty. No, you're not. God's going to use the dirt to build your testimony. And what's crazy, you'll win more people talking about your dirt than you will talking about your righteousness. I've won more people in my ministry talking about my struggle than I ever have talking about my victories. And you're the same way. I'm telling you, today is a landmark day at Lifechangers Church. Never thought it would be on June the 28th when half the church has gone on vacation. Never thought it would be like this. But it's a landmark day. Do y'all feel it? It's a landmark day. And some of you have made some bold announcements. You've raised your hand that you don't feel worthy and that you feel dirty. I'm here to tell you the Bible shows us that grace gets even stronger when the sin gets stronger. Grace even abounds even more when sin abounds even more. You can't be too bad that God won't use you. You can't be too ugly that God won't use you. You can't sin too much that God won't use you. But you got to let go of that life. So I want to ask everybody in here with your head bowed and your eyes closed. I want to say that prayer. I sit here right now and I think I'm trying not to get emotional because I think about me where I was. The thing that was hard about reaching me is you had to go through all kinds of church culture to get me. Man, I had been through church. I had watched church. I'd watched how people done church. And I thought I had church figured out. And there's no way you're going to fool me into getting involved in church. I've seen too much of it. But when God really touches you in that place of purpose, that's a game changer. And I look at some of you right now and you're vulnerable. You're vulnerable and you've exposed some things. And when you expose things, that's when God can touch you. So I want to ask everybody in here to say this prayer with me. Dear Jesus, I confess right now that I am a sinner, that I am dirty, that I am probably not worthy of the call you've put on my life. But Jesus, I accept it.